So there's a few kind of key metrics that we look at here when determining what a good backlink is and what a successful campaign might look like beyond sort of obviously the bottom line impacts, right? So number one is going to be high authority site. So using sort of a proxy metric here, like a DR, so from Ahrefs, the domain rating, or a DA, or an authority score from SEMrush, these are not great in a silo in the sense that you don't want to be looking at only a DR, DA, authority score and saying, okay, if it's below 50, it's terrible. If it's a 65 and above, it's fantastic. You also want to look at all of these other things combined. So we don't want to take any metric in a standstill, and we don't want to pigeonhole any metrics here. So we want to make sure we're looking at the holistic site as an approach here to make sure that we're determining what is an actual good link. But this tends to be a very good tripwire metric in that, yes, you can game these. You can propagate up your link profile with some like mediocre sites and make the DR look strong. But again, we're looking at that as more so a tripwire metric in that usually anything under that like 30 mark is a pretty new site overall, or a pretty obscure niche where there's just not much going on there. So it just depends on what niche you're in, and you can tailor that a little bit higher or a little bit lower. So if you're in like a technology space, most sites are going to have a pretty big online footprint and presence there. So DRs as a proxy score here are going to be a bit higher, probably on that like 50 to 60 plus mark. Whereas something that's going to be super niche, like maybe a gardening website, it might not have that many folks talking about it or referencing it. So you can tailor these just based on your current niche. The next thing here is going to be traffic, right? So we want to make sure that the site doesn't just have a high DR or high score. It has actual traffic coming to it. It's ranking for good organic keywords. It has some direct and branded search as well. These are really good secondary metrics on traffic to understand that not everyone prioritizes just getting organic traffic, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So sometimes you'll see folks say, oh, this site doesn't get organic traffic. Google doesn't really like it. It's not necessarily the case, right? It could be a site that just prioritizes direct and branded search, doesn't really post that much content on its blog. It's a pretty maybe small site. So that's still one that is valuable to get a link from. It just, they might just not have as much content on there. But again, we want to look at this from the holistic perspective. The third metric we want to look at here is contextual. And so what we mean by that is just where is that actual link you're getting placed, right? So is it on a directory? Is it a profile? Those are generally speaking not ones that are going to provide any sort of SEO value, as realistically anyone can go and create their own listing there, right? So if anyone can quickly add their link to something, those are not links that are worthwhile to get. They might be okay to get from like a branding perspective, things like that, but they're not going to help you rank higher for competitive keywords. The whole point of good quality links is that they're difficult to get, right? So if they're really easy to get, if you can go to a directory and just submit your site, that's not going to provide any value there. So it's one we want to skip. And what we want to look for is really that contextually placed link within an article that's relevant to your niche. The next one here is going to be relevancy, obviously. We want to make sure that, at least sort of if the site is not a direct one-to-one relevancy because, it might be a competitor or something like that, let's try to get relevancy here from a topic standpoint to make sure that there's at least a potential chance here for folks to click through to drive you some really good referral traffic. And then lastly here, we want to make sure that there's no sort of no follow, sponsored tags. No follow is not necessarily a bad thing. There's going to be plenty of sites out there that just blanket no follow your links, and that's okay too. But we want to, at least from an SEO perspective, try to get as little of those as we can in comparison to just regular links without those tags.